Hey, it's Soul, and this is the guide to blacksmithing in Midnight. Here we'll cover the feel of leveling up and specialization paths. Then we'll cover what I call cooldown and mastery crafting along with a few builds, then highlight some cool things blacksmithing has to offer. This is an intermediate guide that does assume you've got at least some familiarity with modern professions in World of Warcraft, including, things like specializations and knowledge points and quality. Use the navigation to get you where you want to go. Please like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, and catch me where I'm live. A few things to point out, and you can skip this if you've heard it before because I'm going to repeat this for just about every profession in this series. Consumable goods and reagents like whetstones and alloy now only have 2 ranks. It's a pretty big deal that creates a distinction between what I call a cooldown crafting approach versus a master crafting approach. And I need to explain those terms too. A cooldown crafter doesn't rely on high-level materials or tools or even levels or knowledge points beyond what's needed to learn recipes. Instead, they focus on using the concentration resource to raise the quality of an item to the next highest rank. In Midnight, virtually all professions can apply this philosophy to create a crafter who basically uses concentration to make max quality consumables and reagents when possible, thus using concentration like a sort of daily cooldown mechanic. A player with this philosophy sees their characters more or less as tools, a means to an end, a piece to scale up production, and so on and so forth. I'm speculating here, but I anticipate cooldown crafters to be pretty popular in Midnight, as they don't need to follow most of the progression involved to make high-quality crafts, and so large parts of what professions are don't matter to these characters. Now, there might be a drawback, as this could actually impact the supply of normal quality materials, which might narrow the price differences in quality. Master crafters, on the other hand, they depend on building up levels and knowledge points to eventually mass-produce high-quality items and gear, which involves all the weekly grinding and the activities involved. Now, their advantage is having full agency to craft as much as they want whenever they want. The disadvantages come from having to build the character up and the reliance on high-end materials unless they're provided. Being a master crafter also falls under the philosophy of being a completionist who wants to fully develop their character. Now, of course, you can play the game however you like, but this guide will make very strict distinctions so you can come up with your own strategy. All the familiar trappings have returned, from specializations to knowledge points to patron orders and concentration. A number of recipes, including most Decor recipes, they're purchased with Artisan's Moxie, earned from skill ups, getting knowledge, and fulfilling patron orders. Moxie, by the way, replaces Artisan's Acuity from the War Within, but with a significant change. Moxie is also specific to a given profession, so unlike Dragonflight and the War Within, you won't be able to jump across multiple professions to consolidate a mass of Moxie to then dump onto a single profession. Most crafters don't practice this, but those who have had a distinct advantage, and that's gone now. The overall mechanics of blacksmithing haven't changed, but the way it dances with everything else makes professions, including blacksmithing, feel quite a bit more accessible. I'm just here to help you find a bit of direction. From testing so far, leveling is as straightforward as it's always been, at least up to a point. Guide sites like wowprofessions.com are going to do a great job of guiding players, but these days it's also easy to self-guide by following what gives bonus levels. During testing, I was able to get my level to around 60 when I got stuck making blacksmithing hammers until max level, which was a bit surprising, reaching, max level just like that. It could be something to get patched out as we get closer to launch, but otherwise, we might expect a lot of spare blacksmithing hammers flooding the auction house. It's a bit of a hint to the enchanters out there looking for something plentiful and cheap to process, but the volume of this supply is going to depend on your realm. Patron orders appear to have gone unchanged, and it will be fairly important to build up Moxie to learn recipes if that's what you're interested in. Tool-wise, the approach is about the same. Those who want to fulfill crafting orders, including patron orders, will be interested in resourcefulness. Consumable and material crafters want multi-craft. Cooldown crafters will at least want uncommon tools to get by, and we'll talk about tools a little bit more later. Let's look at specializations and what's changed. The ever-burning forge spec from the War Within, that's gone, and toolsmithing is now its own separate specialization. Not that it matters much because these days all 4 specs can be unlocked very easily because of how fast we can level. Toolsmithing is separated into 3 main categories: the tools themselves, accessories, and enchants, aka toolstones. Traditionally, even though toolsmithing demand is limited to a one-time craft at the high end, there are now 3 qualities of profession equipment. You see uncommon, rare, and epic. Now, the skill bonus, that stops at rare, and an epic tool only gives secondary stats. A number of players may settle for the rare quality tool early on and then make themselves an epic later. How likely is that? Probably likely for gatherers, followed by consumable crafters and then gear crafters. It's kind of a weird approach, but it looks like it's a different thing they're trying. The Old Ways covers both alloy smithing and a lot of secondary stats to improve crafts. Anyone interested in being a master of consumables is going to hang out here, while alloy smiths will call this tree home for quite some time. Under weapon and armor smithing, there are a few changes. The small change is that weapon stones are now hanging out in the weaponsmithing tree. It's kind of unusual, but hey, okay. When it comes to mastering any of these specializations though, there are some big shifts. When learning a spec, you can actually progress all the way down to the bottom of a tree without using skill points, so you can immediately learn an epic recipe. Of course, if you want to spec wide and make lots of things, you'll still need to pick up points along the path. On top of this, learning the second tier traits up here will fully open up optional reagents to manipulate in these trees. This means it'll be that much easier for a blacksmith to craft higher level weapons and armor early in the season by taking adventure level crests to boost basic crafted gear into these early epics. Now I do gotta tell you, the skill values look all jacked up in the beta. It makes it impossible to craft this gear without concentration, even if I happen to have like max skill and tools and materials, so that's just a bug, and it's bound to be fixed over time. And lastly, Embellished gear now allows stats to be customized, making them much more appealing for min-max builds. Now let's go over the crafting philosophies. A cooldown crafter's best strategy here is going to be to focus on alloy smithing. The resources needed to make these are pretty trivial, from making the initial ingots to using additional ore to make the other alloy. Making weapon and tool stones might be handy, but aren't likely to move like as fast. Production is super easy to scale as these recipes only require levels to access and the concentration cost isn't as high as what you'll see elsewhere. Master crafters have choices similar to what they've always had. Toolsmiths will usually find good money in crafting gathering tools, though in order to make the epic crafts, they're going to have to work the patron orders to earn the moxie needed to buy the recipes. Now fortunately, the rare quality recipes are earned through specializations, the epic ones though, those you'll have to buy. The individual alloy smith might be competing against a potential legion of cooldown crafting alts who can produce high quality reagents pretty much day one. It's hard to tell if the outcry for making professions easier over the years might in fact backfire, because the most greedy of gamers, they might use alt armies to dictate large chunks of the market, leaving the more casual crafter worse off in the past. I know it's kind of cynical, and it is hard to predict players, so we'll have to wait and see. As a consequence, armor and weaponsmiths might thrive as their high skills are still needed to make top quality crafts. Once again, the difference in specializations is to either go deep into one to master an epic craft or to spec wide, giving the flexibility to craft adventure level epics early on and then later get enough knowledge points to craft using concentration before fully mastering the many slots. And real quick, let's go over some of the cool epics blacksmithing can make. There's an epic shield with a defensive proc that absorbs damage, but explodes for damage if it's broken through, meaning it should be broken through like all the time. There are boots that give an avoidance proc. And of course there is Decor, which I count as epic. One of them, the Ornate Crafter's Tongs, is bugged at the moment, so it's not on display. The recipes aren't found from the trainers, but they are bought with Moxie. More information is available by mousing over the info button for each recipe. And that's the guide. Let us know what you think about the changes or what happens to be missing that I should be covering. Please like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.